Hi there, Kat. I hope you're doing well. I just had the pleasure of reading through your initial draft for essay number 3, and it was fantastic and very fun and enjoyable to read. So your essay, not surprisingly, is already awesome, really strong, and would probably already earn an A range in our class for this assessment. So what I'm going to do in my feedback is I'm going to try to give you some comments that I think could make this already awesome essay even stronger. So because I think that you're somebody who's always up for the challenge and who's an intrinsically motivated learner and may actually want to take the time to go back in and apply some of these ideas. So just know as I'm giving you feedback and suggestions that your essay is already demonstrating comprehension and application well above and beyond what is expected in this essay, but I think you could have fun and go even further. So let me just speak to those things as we read it. So I'm going to post some written feedback for you as well, but let me just go ahead and talk through these things. Sometimes I think it makes sense to hear it and see it. So your introduction is quite strong. I love your voice. You have a very naturally engaging voice when you write. And you strike a really nice balance here between the sort of casual letter writing genre and a more academic. And so I think it works really well. It's engaging. It will draw Jake in and make him feel connected and listened to. I think what you're setting yourself up for is what I'll call a delayed thesis structure. So in this last sentence here, you write, as the ethics guru, to provide clarity on which path to pursue, leaving your stable job that you enjoy or tackling the challenges of nursing school, I will introduce you to a few philosophers who have a lot to say on the subject of the good life. So really what you're letting Jake know there is that I have a plan. I'm not going to map it out for you here in my introduction, but trust me, we're going to follow these different threads or these different arguments, and it'll eventually lead you to an answer. So that is what we like to call delayed thesis structure. And I know not a lot of students can always pull that off because sometimes their essay gets off track. They forget what their thesis actually is and how to link back to that. But you have such a clear sense of purpose and direction that I'm not worried about that at all in your essay. And you use really strong transitions and topic sentences, so you're able to guide Jake or your reader through those points without ever feeling lost or off track. And so that delayed thesis, I think, works really well. And you actually get to your thesis in your conclusion. And it's not surprising at that point because you've been building toward it effectively throughout the argument. So we move into John Stuart Mill first. You do a fantastic job of describing what a low quality and a high quality pleasure is, helping Jake sort of understand what the difference is between those things and why it is that Mill thinks one of those is going to be more worthwhile in the long run than the other. And here I think this is a really great point. You quote his idea that the preferred experiences give a most marked preference to the manner of existence which employs their higher faculties. And then thank you for translating this for Jake. Sorry, I've heard myself talk too much today, so I'm tripping over my words. Simplifying this for Jake and saying that the quality of pleasure can be measured by its ability to ignite the intellect. That is such a cool idea, and I'm actually going to suggest that you build on that idea a little bit more. So some things to think about. Of the two choices that Jake has, going to nursing school or staying in his current job, which one is more likely to ignite the intellect for him? Which one is going to bring him those longer lasting pleasures? And so I think that you could tease that out a little bit more. Doesn't have to be in this paragraph. I think it actually might fit later on a little bit better. But really thinking about how can you capitalize on this point? You've worked up to this point that this is why Mill thinks that high quality pleasures are better. So how do you kind of like run that idea fully around the bases into home base by showing Jake how this idea pertains to his particular situation? So you move into this really great question, I think, which path leads to the good life? And then you're going to pull in some additional support pieces from chapter 3 to help Jake see which one is going to lead to the good life. So you start with Electrode Man. awesome summary of that and nice analysis of that, showing Jake that Electrode Man, even though he's experiencing pleasure, isn't necessarily flourishing. So I'm going to suggest slowing down in here before you transition to Rat Park and spending some time directly applying this to Jake. Okay, so I feel like what you're trying to say here, and you can just come out and say it, is, Jake, staying at your current job is not that different from opting for a life like that of Electrode Man. You're going to experience these nice sensations, but really give Jake a sense of what he's missing out on by that, right? Like he's experiencing this pleasure, but I think Jake should be able to look at Electrode Man and say, that's not enough. And you can help him get there. You can say, Jake, I think we'd agree that even though Electrode Man is experiencing these pleasures, there's something more in life that we ought to be seeking. And that's probably why, Jake, you feel that little voice in the back of your mind that's nudging you to do something more. Electrode Man may feel good, but he's not really getting all that there is to get out of life. So how can you really flesh out some of those ideas, helping Jake to see how if he chooses to stay at the resort, he's really just choosing that shallow existence of Electrode Man. So just teasing those ideas out a little bit more there, I think is really going to help open Jake's eyes to why that example is so important to his situation. Same thing with Rat Park. You do an awesome job of summarizing Rat Park, of explaining what happens to the rats, showing that they prefer high quality pleasures. And again, how can you connect this specifically to Jake? So if we think of Rat Park almost as like a metaphor for Jake's own life, what would the parts represent? So, what is the closed cage? What is the enriched cage for Jake? What is it about a nursing path that's going to provide more enrichment for Jake than he might get if he stayed in that kind of metaphorical cage of trapping himself in that smaller world of the resort? So really exploring those ideas of, Jake, you too can find a way out of this cage, which is very limiting in some ways. I mean, we're not suggesting that Jake is indulging in addictive drug behavior or anything, but in some ways there's something analogous going on between Rat Park and Jake's situation. And so if you can kind of draw that out, I think in a reasonable way and help Jake sort of see those parallels, then these examples are going to hit him a lot closer to home. So just kind of adding in some of that. Let's look at Socrates. Really nice job getting the metaphor out there and explaining to Jake what it is. I think it's really neat how you're pulling in these other sources to try to deepen Mill and Socrates, to try to support their points. But I'm going to make a suggestion in this paragraph, and it's up to you, Rebecca, whether you want to take this suggestion out, whether or not you think this is rhetorically effective. I'll just put it out there and you can decide for yourself. I actually think that if you were to bump this down to a new paragraph and maybe consider a new topic sentence, then it would allow you to think a little bit more, to dig a little bit more in here, right? So if you take Hyde's example or supporting element and you just kind of pull that out of the Socrates paragraph, then think about what you're left with here. You've just given us this awesome metaphor. How can you apply that to Jake's life? So you've already said that, let's see. You're already alluding to reason here. You're saying that Jake has a reasonable plan. But I'm going to ask you to think about willpower and appetite. How can you apply those elements of the chariot metaphor to Jake's situation? And so is Jake using any willpower right now? How much willpower is he going to need to go in and have fun at his work, his current job every day? What really is his reason telling him? And how is he going to be able to follow that reason? What about his appetites? Right now, what would you say about Jake's appetite horse? Who's really driving the chariot for Jake right now in the situation that he's in? And how can you help Jake see that going to nursing school is really, even though it's harder, it's going to be a way to balance that chariot, to pull that into a more healthy kind of oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like compatibility. All those aspects are sort of working together compatibly. And so how can you help Jake see that that's really something to strive for rather than letting those appetites just suck him into the current job that he is engaging in? And so I think you could really flesh out Socrates' ideas here in this paragraph, and that would be awesome. Then you could go ahead and you could transition into Hyde's support. And it's not going to take anything away. I don't know if this would still be the right topic sentence. I guess you'd have to think about how you're going to move between Socrates and Hyde. Maybe that is the right topic sentence. Just think about it. But if you do decide to pull that paragraph out, you could even push yourself a little bit more at the end to let Jake know in here how he is, how this applies to him, right? So absolutely requires effort. Jake, I know that nursing school is going to be more effort, but as you just saw from this example, effort actually leads to quite a bit of fulfillment. And so maybe just tying that back into Jake at the end. So I feel like there's a theme kind of running throughout the essay. You have all of the summary elements and the analysis of the source itself elements. I guess it's just that last little step that I'm encouraging you to think about fleshing out for each of these components of your essay, where you can really tie it directly back into Jake. And you may be sitting there and thinking, you know, Jake's a smart guy. He should be able to make these connections for himself. But let's just assume that he would be helped out if you could make some of those connections a little bit more concretely for him. So strong conclusion. The citations are working well throughout. I see you've got Eric's book and you've got the Hyde article. That's perfect. Make sure to use hanging indentations for these, where you're just bumping in the second. I don't know why my computer's not letting me do it, but you could just bump in that second line for each of these. Oh, you actually have 3 citations. I see it now. And then this one is I believe this one is the Rat Park. So awesome. Those look fantastic. We're excited. Usually it's going to be its own page. And it doesn't have to have a colon after it. You're just going to put that in the middle like that. And I know it seems silly because it seems to waste all this space. But conventionally, the Works Cited page would be its own page. So you would just have it on this very last page following your essay. Works Cited is in the middle. You've already got it in alphabetical order. It looks like all of your citations are right on. So that looks great. So awesome work, Kat. Like I said, your essay is already quite stellar. I'm just giving you these suggestions in case you want to have something more to push yourself with and take your essay even to the next level. So if you have any questions while you're drafting, or revising, reach out to me and I will look forward to seeing your final draft.